Welcome again to Whoopi Sports Network. My name is James Kamau, and like always, I'm happy to be hosting this show. So today, this new year, the 2025, we have entered it with a new style, new things. This is the Spotlight Show. This is episode 1 of the Spotlight Show, and this is where the real conversations happen. So it's going to be a delight to host this show for the first time in 2025. Being the new thing, I just want to remember that Whoopi Sports is still keeping you updated and linked to basketball in Kenya. That's why we are here. And for today, I'm having a very special guest in studio. Former national team captain, former Team Kenya player, and former national team captain. She's also the head of trade, marketing and distribution at Brand Active. She has also been the first woman to sit as the Secretary General for the Kenya Basketball Federation, as well as the first Kenyan woman to head the FIBA Zone 5 Women Commission. So guys, help me welcome Madam Angela Luchivya. Karibu sana.
Thank you, James, and thank you for those for that introduction.
I just want to start kukurudisha a little bit behind. Can you tell us a little bit about how you actually found yourself there and the basketball part of how you started playing basketball?
We had revolutionized basketball in Alliance, really, and because our team had become together, we had even created a team. We were called Flyers then, Flyers. We were calling ourselves Flyers. We gave the team a name. We were going for almost all tournaments in Central, and we practically won very many tournaments. And most of those tournaments, I was actually also MVP. And that's how I also started now connecting also with some of the people in basketball, in terms of just them wanting to know, when I finish school, do I want to play basketball? Am I going to pursue basketball? What's my plan? A month after playing for joining KCITI, and because most of the players were in KCITI were also playing for Barclays, Eaglets, and some of them were playing for KCB. One or two were playing for KCB, but most of them were playing for Barclays Eaglets. So they pulled me up and told me, you know what, let's also go and let's go for training with Barclays Eaglets. Let's see what the coach will say about you, because we think you're a young and very good player. Let's go. So that's how I ended up also in
Eaglets.
Yes.
So you I assumed that you first went to UN, then like played a couple of university games, then
No, it's very complicated.
Okay.
But those days, you could, because UON was not playing in the league.
Okay.
UON was playing, we had, at that time, what equivalent of KUSA, but it was called UCBL, Universities and Colleges. So I talked to the coaches. I told them, look, I know I'm going to join UON. And for me, I think now it's time I started concentrating on UON, because that's going to be my university now that I've been called there. And at the same time, I continued with Eaglets. So I started now playing for for UON Dynamites. So yes, and that's how I started. I even started before I joined campus. So I was playing for them all the tournaments that were university tournaments and all of that. At the same time, I was playing for Eaglets in the league. So I have ended up in situations. I think sometimes they say when you're prepared, you need to always be prepared when the opportunity comes. And the opportunity comes, yeah. I talk about it, I lift up my hand, I say, now this is the time, or I don't want to, and I grab it and move on.
You joined, like later that year, September, I bet you joined UN. So October.
Yes.
So let's say you played for UN as well as playing for Eagles at the same time.
Yes.
So this is during your 4 years at the university.
Not really. Not really. Okay, actually, let me say yes. But remember, a month after I joined, 2 months after I joined the university, or should I say a month and a half, because I joined the university, that was 99 of October 1999. And then I was still playing for Eaglets, and then November 1999 is when Eaglets, we were involved in a road accident when we were coming back from Mombasa from playing a league game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was sorry about that.
Oh,
I actually
thank
wanted to ask about that, but you can tell us more what happened, and what do you remember of that time and that moment?
Um, for me, by the way, it's still in my mind like yesterday. But the most interesting thing is a number of us in Eaglets, two of us who were in Eaglets were also playing for UON, the late Millicent Kanini. And this is the interesting part. When the previous weekend, we had actually gone to Mombasa to play a tournament that was for, it mostly had, but we had gone as UON. So as UON, what we did at that time, it was, some of us were in UON, Dynamite's team, but we had pulled a few players, especially from Eaglets, to come with us. And we went to Mombasa and played a tournament and won. In fact, we won against KCIT. And I remember it was those hardship, those hardship trips you've gone for. We've paid for ourselves, we've taken the night bus, we've gone there, we've booked one room, or I think 2 rooms, we're all sleeping there. We are not even sleeping because we are young girls, we are having fun, coming back to the room, sleeping a bit and moving on and going to play and that sort of thing. But the most interesting is we when we won that championship against KCIT, in fact, that game for me has been one of my most enjoyable games I've played because, everybody knew what the other person was supposed to do. I bring down the ball, pass it to James. I know James is going to take the drive. I'm waiting for the drive to take the rebounds and to do what. And before the game, because we were so tired and we didn't have a sleeping place, we're actually sleeping in the gym. So we're in the gym and we're asleep. Yes. And the coach of KCIT, in fact, when he was passing there, he's like, look at these girls. They're the ones going to play the finals. They can't even, they're sleeping in the gym. They can't even play. But when we got on the court...
And you had sleeping bags, or you just like sleeping on the floor?
By the way, we were sleeping. We were seated like this. We were asleep.
Okay.
But anyway, so the following weekend, we were back to Mombasa now as Eaglets. And at least like 4 of us who had been the previous weekend in Mombasa were back in Mombasa. And but just before that trip, the bank had actually intimated that they were not going to sponsor the team anymore. They were pulling out sponsorship for basketball, for soccer, and I think it was rugby. And so all those teams were going to fall off the radar. So we had a meeting with our coaches, and the coach had actually told us that once we come back from Mombasa, we'll sit down and come up with a mechanism to make sure that the team does not dissolve.
Yeah.
So we'll find a way of either finding other sponsors or finding individuals who can sponsor the team. So as we were going to Mombasa, we kept on saying, this is our last trip together, so let's be happy. Let's be happy. Let's, if anybody has wronged anyone, let's forgive each other. Let's just have a nice time in Mombasa because this is our last trip together. For me, that's what rings in my head every day. The fact that we kept on saying, this is our last trip together. Anyway, we played the game, lost to KPM, and then left the following day. We were coming back to Nairobi on the Monday. And and that's when we lost control. The driver lost control. We had a tire burst. And then after the tire burst, he had lost control. And as he was trying to get back in order, he had to avoid an oncoming trailer. And then we rolled. At the site, we lost five guys. The coach, 4 players, and then one of the other players passed on at the hospital. So because we were rushed to Voi General Hospital, and then One of us lost her life there because she was in critical condition. The rest of us were treated, but then were airlifted to Nairobi the 2 days after, no, a day after, we were airlifted to Nairobi, where we were for especially for three of us. We were myself, Sylvia Kamau, and one of the other ladies called Mary. We were in Nairobi Hospital, give or take, for about 2 or so, slightly more months. But then we got out of hospital. I learned to live on crutches. Was on crutches, I think, for about 2 years. And so I wasn't playing basketball. Now, coming back to Eaglets, so after the accident, for about a year, there was no Eaglets, and for almost about 6 months, the league had to come to a stop because it was just before playoffs. By the way, at that time, what had also happened is there had been elections about 2 months or 3 months just before our accident. And the chairman, the president of the federation, was our head coach.
Oh.
So, and for him, he was very much affected, especially because this is his team. He was actually supposed to have come on that trip with us, but because he had just been elected as chairman, he told his assistant, who also lived with him, to go on to sit in, to be a stand-in coach for the trip. So you can imagine how it had really impacted him.
Yeah.
So because also a lot of the basketball, this was something that had not happened in basketball before. So, 5 players and a coach have passed on from one team. So the league came to a standstill.
Yeah.
Playoffs were supposed to continue, but they couldn't continue. A lot of people, there had to be a lot of counseling sessions, especially psychological counseling sessions for a lot of the basketballers, so that we could just be able to cope with what had happened and all of this. And so during that time, also what happened is, during our counseling sessions, because we had a lot of counseling sessions, we had agreed that Eaglets should not just die. So then it was agreed, a few senior members of the team decided that they would look for sponsorship, come together, put in some money, and see if the team can continue. So there was an Eaglets with the new players that was recruited. I think that was around now 2001. 2000, I think 2000 we didn't have a team. Then 2001 we came back together, got a team together now with players who had just come from school, were recruited into the team. So I would go and watch them training, and for some of their games, just for me also to take my mind off the fact that I can't play.
Yeah.
Because for me that was also a very trying period. I was in campus. I'm trying to figure out campus life. I've just joined campus, but now I'm figuring out campus life on crutches. So I'm on crutches. I have to go to class. I want to go for basketball sometimes, and that, in fact, most people during that period remember me as the girl who used to be on crutches, because I was on crutches for almost 2 years.
Yeah, that's
so
a long
every day
time.
they would just see me on crutches, and they know that girl with crutches. But the good thing is, UN was also very supportive at that time.
That moment that you're on those crutches for 2 years.
Yes, it was.
How did you deal with that psychological torture, I'll say?
It was difficult some moments to keep sane, and to be honest, I had to see a counselor for those 2 years. I was actually also on weekly counseling sessions, and then they moved to monthly, and then eventually, before I eventually could be able to, and I was also on quite a bit of drugs, just in terms of anti-relaxants, depressants, and all of that, before I could get back. I could really get back to life.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that I also had quite a good support system. My teammates, especially those we had been, a few of those who had been in the accident together, like Sylvia. We were very close, and she was really, supportive. I had a very supportive network around me.
Yeah.
The former chairman of the federation, Mr. Luanga, also made sure that every other time they would check up on me, even just as a group. The Eagles and Eaglets group, up till now, I must say also, we are very close and very tight, especially of that time. So because we were very close, and with the support system was there. I also, by the time I was getting a little bit beginning to wean off crutches, and I was now supposed to be doing rehab, people like Dr. Odera from Sadili Oval. At that time, Sadili Oval was very big in terms of their gym, their facilities, offered me exclusive free gym access for almost a year and a half, so that I could strengthen my body, strengthen my legs, so that I could be able to get back to playing. So over and above that, especially my brothers, my mother, I will say, my mother, she had now just said, I have been telling you from high school this basketball. Now it is what was going to kill you. And now you're trying to get back to it. I don't want to hear anything about basketball in my house.
Yeah.
Because it was about to kill you. So I really had to see how to be very discreet even when I'm going back to basketball. Because I didn't want my mom to know that I'm going back to basketball. And I'll come back to later on why my mom was for her, that was also a very trying moment. So I had to go back to basketball. My brothers at some point knew, but they couldn't tell my mom I've gone back to playing basketball, because my mom would bring hell, knowing that I've gone back to basketball. So by the time I weaned off my crutches, I got back to playing. And that's when now I started now playing again competitively.
Do you remember like the events during that call-up, and like can you tell us the events before that call-up, and where you were, maybe what you were doing then, how you felt about the call-up, the whole experience for the national team call-up?
So come 1999, even before the accident, I had gotten a call-up to the national team. That was my first call-up. However, that year it was very tricky. There was election, and then the national team was supposed to go for, I think, All African Games in South Africa. But then, because of the election and the electioneering period, there were two camps. So we ended up having two teams. So one team that has been called by one camp, and another team that's been called by another camp.
Like literally two factions of the same.
The two factions had called their own national teams.
Okay, that's quite interesting.
And at some point, there are players who you are on both lists, so you don't know where to go, you don't know who to. So first training was called, we started camp, and then after some time, another list came out, and it was said, if you go for this training, you cannot, it would be construed that you. So it became very confusing. So you were just filling forms. You brought for forms, you fill. You brought for forms by this other faction, you fill.
You don't know which one is going to be the actual team.
Exactly.
So, okay.
And anyway, in a sad way, basketball ended up being removed from that All-African contingent because there was no team that could be submitted to the organizers.
Okay.
Because both factions were claiming. And then, after that came elections. I've now gotten back. It was towards the end, I think, of one. I've gotten back. I've gotten a call-up. For me, it was, yes. Obviously, I was excited. But then again, I knew that I'm much younger than most of the players. That's number one. Number two was the fact that during my 99 experience, hey, man, those days it was crazy. You get in as a rookie and you really have to fight for your position. So I get in anyway in 2001, and first of all, the first thing that I don't want to sound bad. Okay, the first thing, first of all, is this girl, she talks too much English. She's from the other side of town.
Oh, okay.
So my first barrier is that I don't speak umta. I'm not.
There's a cultural difference between you and the other players.
Number two, this girl who keeps saying, yeah, she has campus, she has classes, she has what? My number two barrier. So those are barriers that now I had to break. Because everybody used to say I speak too much English. Sometimes you even speak to people, they tell you back in Kiswahili, sisi hatusikii hizo. Wewe acha kuja hapa kujisikia, unajisikia, umekuja unajisikia, unataka kutuonyesha unajua. So it wasn't easy. Yeah, because first people have to try and see me as me, and not as this girl who's come from, unfortunately also those days, half the team, 3/4 of the team ilikuwa watu wa mtaa. So accepting this person who seems like is not from mtaa
was a hard fit for them. Yeah.
And it was also a hard fit for me to try and integrate into the team.
Yeah,
because I'm now thinking, misi wa mtaa, hawa watu wanataka nikuwe mtu wa mtaa. But somehow I ended up integrating somehow. I tried, sometimes you need to learn how to integrate and break the barriers that are there, and prejudices about you and perceptions. So I had to really try and integrate into
the team.
Into the team. So anyway, in 2001 I get back into the team. I'm a little bit more, I've been integrated into basketball a little bit more, so at least I can be able to integrate with some of the players, even though the prejudices were still there. But for me it was, how do I break the prejudices rather than give up or get out?
Yeah.
So and that was my journey into the team. So from there,
you were young, 24, 20 to 20.
Yeah, about maybe 20. Because my first call up in 99, I was, 18? 18.
Okay.
Yeah, and then by this time, I'm about 21, 22. Yeah.
So I want to fast forward a bit.
Yes.
You were the All-African captain games. I heard that you got an award for captain of the tournament or something like that for the All-African games. Was it later on when you were like a bit older?
Yes, in 2007 I was the overall captain of the Africa Games team. Like captain of all the games that were happening: athletics, basketball, hockey, football, etc. Yeah.
Okay. Just Angela Luchivya, you are the first female Secretary General. I think I don't know even where to start, but that seat, the previous
It's hot.
The previous owner of that seat left that office. The one before him also, I don't know the reason why. I think they're all personal reasons. Also left that seat. How do you find it so far?
So far, wow, it's hot. It's hot like.
How do you describe the hotness of that seat?
It's a hot potato, but that doesn't mean that. That doesn't mean that the heat cannot be cooled down.
Yeah.
I think, they say the Secretary General's job or role or is the heartbeat of any organization.
Yes.
And so that's why it's hot, because it's hot when things are good, it's hot when things are bad.
Yeah.
Yes, but remember, as human beings, humans forget very quickly the good things.
Yeah.
So the bad things are the ones that will linger on. Yes,
on our
they will
mind.
linger on.
Yeah.
Whether even on personal, if you look at personal grounds, when you do one small bad thing,
Yeah. It
that-
becomes the
that's
whole
what
conversation.
everybody remembers.
Yes.
They forget about all the good things that you have done.
Yeah, and because you've been actively, like your career, you are also, not have been, you are in the corporate world. So
Yes.
I'd want this conversation to talk about the product. I think that's a better way of putting it. So, but before I get to that, I'll just read one. I'll quote one person, Kent Juma. I think you know Kent Juma.
Yes.
So, like, to kick off such our conversation about this product that Kenyan Basketball League, I think the Kenya National Basketball League is the product itself. So, and I quote him. He says, "The federation should reduce the number of teams to give top quality leagues, unlike now where we have a longer and low quality league. Have a few teams, for example, men's Premier League to be reduced from 12 to 8, while women's Premier League to be reduced from 12 to 6, which will make the league competitive." End of quote. So, just your thoughts on that first.
That's a catch-22. And I know where Juma Kent is coming from with that. And I must say, I know Juma Kent well. He's one of the people also who brought me like really into basketball,
Okay.
and convinced me to stay in basketball at the club level.
Yeah.
But for me, there's two things right now. Previously, a lot of people say it's not like yesteryears. Yesteryears, yes, we were, I think, 6 ladies teams and about 8 or 10 men's teams, and that was the Premier League. That was the league. The rest of you guys, pambaneni huko chini, try and see if you can make it to these 8 teams and 6 teams. The rest of you, pia as players, pambaneni to see if you can make it to be in the rosters of these teams. And that's where he's coming from, because then it was so competitive, because for you to be in a team, and I'll tell you, my journey into Eaglets, when I say it here, seems like it was easy.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. I'm saying how I got in there, and it sounds like I just woke up and I was called and what. We used to train. If it was during my days, I mean, like a day like today, I don't have a game. I'm training from morning. We would call each other with my friends, Sylvia, Mary, Millicent, the late Millicent. We would go from 12 to 6. We're a Barclay Sports Club training. Train to make yourself better. And that's where it's coming. That's where I know a lot of people have been bringing their comments from, especially those who watched basketball in the yesteryears. Because of the scarcity mentality, what happens is the quality goes up. The quality goes up. But when I know that I don't have to train, but I can still be in a team, they'll still accommodate me. I'm training 2 times a week, 1 time a week, and that kind of thing. And then I know that in the league, tuko teams 12, ni team moja, mbili zitaangushwa, hata tukiwa tu number 10, we are fine. Now that's the mentality that I know kind of sets in. However, that's why I'm saying it's a catch-22, because times have changed. The game has grown. There's more players. So much as we would like to say that, but there's the other side of looking at inclusivity. And how do you ensure that we can allow as many players as possible to get to express themselves on a platform? So the way I would look at it is not necessarily for us to reduce the number of teams, but we have done it this year, is to reduce the number of players per team, so that you're bringing in competition and bringing in competitiveness. I would also say, to some extent, I feel that we might have to reduce the number of teams, especially at premier level, to increase the quality and to make people, because remember, like I've said, scarcity mentality really leads to survival tactics, which leads to people wanting to work harder and wanting to improve themselves so that they can survive.
Yeah, but just on that point, for me, my take, just looking at NBA, it has over 30 teams. So if we go that route, how long, like, will we remain there? Because more people will want to play, more teams will want to be in the Premier League. So at some point, we'll have to accommodate maybe even more teams. But the real concern is, this is how the league looks like. I've looked at the records of the previous league winners. They're mostly corporate teams. They are the winners. So right now, what we have is 12 teams. University teams in the main league. We have corporate teams in the main league, which I personally don't like why they are there. And as a team, I think it's more of a CSR kind of a thing, and it's not really benefiting the whole fit of the league. And also having a self-sponsored team which are struggling. So is the solution really reducing the teams, which I think is not really a permanent solution?
No, it isn't. However, the other solution that also needs to be there this has to take a really 360 turnaround. Number one, do we have county leagues that are running effectively? Sometimes it pains me to hear that NBA, Nairobi Basketball Association, has teams from Kitui coming to play in it. Then that, for me, tells me there is a breakdown.
And the basketball is centralized.
Yes, basketball should not be centralized. We should have very big county leagues. So each of the counties first needs to make sure that they have set up structures and they have set up their leagues. Because that way, what will happen? We will have then a very effective county playoffs that decides which teams come into the Premier League and into the National League. That's one. So that needs to happen. Right now, we are also struggling because that is not happening. A lot of the counties don't have their own leagues.
The setup, like the sports registrar, with the new constitution, it's supposed to be like that.
It's supposed to be like that. Each
county should have,
but counties can register, but they don't necessarily have to have a league. I like what and I'll keep going back to what now Machakos, Makueni, and Kitui have tried to do. I know Kisumu is trying, Eldoret is now trying. They now have a small league there. At least now we are seeing there's a team from Kitale that is trying to play. So that's how we need to create it, so that even for the players playing down there in the county leagues, their aspiration becomes to play in the National League. And that becomes some, they have some aspiration. On the other side, and for me this has also been a very big catch-22, is universities, like you said. I think at some point we have to make a proper decision, and universities also have to make a very strategic and clear-cut decision on whether they're university teams or they're clubs. Now, according to the Sports Act, there's nothing like I'm a university team. You're either a club or not. And at some point, that's where we will need to head. We will have to head to that direction to be able also to put in processes and activities that are club related, and not now this thing of we have classes, we have games, we have what starts going
exams.
away.
Yeah.
We have exams, because they have to make a decision whether they're clubs or they're university teams. When you look at rugby, for example, and I'll use rugby in this example, there some of the you see the university teams that play there, they're treated like clubs. They're not treated like university teams. But we've been too accommodative in trying to be inclusive. And that is beginning, at some point, it's beginning to be our downfall, kiasi, because we want to be inclusive. But then again, we make it inclusive, but then you bring us down.
Yeah.
So that's the catch. That's what I'm saying. It's a catch. It's a balancing act.
Okay.
Corporate teams are coming back, which is very good for us. But at the same time, my take on that is another totally different angle.
The corporate teams, you were part of Backless Eaglets, so them pulling out, so the impact on the team was big as well.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to just to put it into context. What first, there is the federation. Can you expound kidogo on that role of the federation?
Is to promote, advance, develop basketball in Kenya. To make sure that we are coming up with activities strategically to promote basketball in Kenya and to develop basketball in Kenya.
Yeah.
So the league is just one of the activities of the federation that we use to promote basketball.
Okay.
Yes.
So, but is it a product on itself? The league, is it a product on itself, by itself?
It's a product by itself.
You know, the promoting part, you can also do tournaments. You can decide to do tournaments.
Yes.
But it's something that you'd want it to be successful. So
in our efforts to be inclusive and to listen, we are creating problems. Too much interferences from, basically it's mostly from teams. So those interferences create the inconsistencies with the fixture. And I think at some point we will have to stop, because it can't keep going that way. At some point you've got to call it a stop, and at some point you've got to say, now let's follow the rules and regulations. Yeah, because the rules and regulations are there.
Yeah.
If you look at the league rules and regulations, there's processes even that should be followed. If you need a postponement of the game, if you need cancellation of a game, etc. But that is not followed, because James has come to me, he's saying they really have this big problem and there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 happening, and etc, etc. Or James even says he's already talked to the coach of the other team. That's not the right process.
Oh, and the game is cancelled.
The coach has said he's okay with you cancelling the game, so please guys, all you guys are refusing now to cancel my game, and that sort of. But you see, that's not the process. That's not the right thing, because then it ends up being like a kiosk. But it's in the process of being inclusive. When you bring a stop to it, people start an outcry that, oh, you're dictators. You become dictators.
Yeah.
And that's the catch. However, for me, another thing, I'll go back to teams. Even as you're talking about the product, we have a product, yes. But then again, the product the ingredients of that product is the teams. I like what Thunder is doing, but who else is going to do it? Even these corporate teams, they cannot continue saying they're corporate teams. They have to become something. People follow AFC Leopards, Gor Mahia.
Yeah.
They don't follow FKF League. So we have to get to a point where teams understand that they are their own products, but an ingredient to the product of Kenya National Basketball League.
Yeah.
From our end, what I feel we need to do is we need to recreate the platform that we are offering, so that these teams feel that whatever it is that they're putting in is worth being on this platform. And that way, once we recreate the platform and make it in a way that teams feel they can invest more, then that's going to work. That's what we can do. We can try to influence. If you see, we have tried even sometimes this Friday night games, Saturday night games, was just to be able to try and see. We've realized most people prefer coming to the gym late in the evenings and what. Now for us, the thing that comes now after that should be, how do we make these Friday night games entertaining? The entertainment bit is still not coming up very well. And I must admit, it's something
because
that
of finances, or
it's something that we need to look into.
Yeah.
Because people also don't go to gyms just to watch the game. They go into gyms to look at many other things. They go to the stadium for an experience.
Yes.
The game is part of the experience, but might not necessarily be the main reason they have gone there. And so that's for me, to be honest, that is what I would envision into the future for basketball. The entertainment bit and everything else that's around that is what will really make our games, our product now, be a little bit worthwhile.
Yeah.
However, we also need, it's a give and take. So we also need the teams to be able to build their products and bring in these products of theirs, meaning they bring in fans who can be able to help to experience what it is we are offering, so that together it then becomes, it works out. But if, for example, I'll give an example. Yesterday there was Friday night, and we have gotten a DJ, we have brought what, but the teams that are playing don't have fans. Then what happens? Then you're left with, you have music, you have, yesterday we didn't do that, but I'm just saying, we have music, you have gotten the lights, and you've gotten what, and you've gotten all of these costs and liabilities, but then there are no fans. So now, because Equity and Umoja don't have funds, or don't have enough funds to be able now to create this. Even sometimes, sitting also on the other side, it becomes tiring if every day you guys are paying for music, paying for lights, paying for what, and then there are no funds. And it gets to a point now you're beginning to look at cost-benefit analysis and saying, no, we need to stop having the music, we need to cut down on Friday night games, or because lights, we have to pay for the lights, the gym. If we get the gym today, we're paying this amount, and then there are no people coming in, there are no funds coming in, and so it starts becoming a cost-benefit analysis. So it needs to start it needs to be at all levels. It's not all about the federation and what the federation will do, but it's also what are the teams doing. Thunder has managed to create their fan base.
Yeah.
And even for us as a federation, you then don't get worried about providing a platform for Thunder's games, because you know that fans will come to experience it. If today you told me, I've had many people saying, oh, games now need to move to Kasarani. Wow. But Kasarani is also expensive.
Do we see any chance of these teams building up even fan bases? Because equity is just equity. If, for example, I came from Eldoret and then I wanted to support Eldoret Platinum, that would make sense because I'm from Eldoret. Same case with other leagues, Europe and America. So, like, our league itself, is it not? It's not that attractive for fans? Because even if equity were good, would I really support equity?
I would say, and that's, I was supposed to talk about that also. I wanted to say, and that's why I said corporate, I have a different view of that. Corporate is good, but I also have a view that we need to build more community teams, because community teams create the emotional connection with the people. And that's how, for example, FC and Gor and Shabana, those are community teams. So that connection, and now Muranga Seal is beginning to build. When you have community teams, the connection, the emotional connection is better and faster. So I would also love a situation where at some point we're going to have more community teams, more teams, and in this way, much as it's a very good thing that, you know, Equity, Stanbic, all those are coming in and providing jobs for our players.
Yeah.
I would look at it from the angle of, why not take up a community team and drive the agenda through the community angle? Because even that way, as a corporate, and me sitting again on the corporate side, doing that also helps you to drive your brand. Because if you're doing it as a CSR, and that's why sometimes we are having corporates walking out, because I've done my CSR, next year, our CSR is golf.
And you can't do anything about it.
Or a management comes in that they're thinking that their CSR, they love golf, or they love polo, or they love hockey. So someone might say, no, let's stop chasing basketball, let's go into hockey. And that's what it can easily become. But if we drive it through a community standpoint and the community angle, then you're able also to drive your brand within the community as you build your brand upwards and get visibility. And that's how I would look at it.
And should we then now stop the league? You know, it's not something that is impossible, because at some point NBA did that. Like there was a period where the league stopped for a while. They were working on, I think, salary caps. Everyone has different problems, but at some point they had that problem. So after that, players became better paid because they were also in that situation. I want to imagine also in your position as a player and now in the administration, you never earned from basketball as a player. So we're in that position and we want to take it to the next level. But at the current way and the current status of the league, should we just not stop the league, make the structures different? I think you guys have the powers to do that.
You know,
And demand for
and sitting in this position, I'm telling you, there's a lot of things. You see, I like the way you said it from your point of view. Stop and let's move on.
Yeah.
Stop for a period. Let's think about it. Let's move on.
Let's strategize about it. Yeah.
Unfortunately, let me tell you one of the other things. I told you everything is a balancing act. The ecosystem also that depends on basketball, in basketball, is big. Now imagine a situation where we stopped the league for a period of time. There's coaches, there's players, there's coaches who rely on, when the league is being played, for them at least to get something into their pockets. There's referees we also have quite a big ecosystem, to be honest. There's
Yes.
referees, there's players. There's sometimes players who, if the league is not on or what, in terms even of their scholarships and what, things start becoming questionable. So that's why I'm saying there's a lot of things that has to be put into perspective before such a decision is reached. I'll tell you, sometimes even when the league is off season, the number of calls we are getting from people, please start the league. Please restart, resume. When is the league resuming? Please, our players are suffering. Please, our, you know, so, and again, I go back to the fact that much as out here people think that these federation people are so inhuman, they don't think.
Yeah.
We have that humane nature in us, and we are very empathetic.
How much does it cost to run like a whole season?
The league.
Yeah, roughly, like the league for a whole season.
Okay. For a whole season, are we talking about, give or take, 10 to 15 million?
And how much would you say have in that 10 to 15 million has come into, like, as an ROI, a return on that?
And nothing. We are always on negative returns.
So-
And that's why I say, sometimes I read how people are saying, in fact, basic, minimal, we cut on things, cut, we've done our budget, maybe 8 million. Cut a lot of things, there's no music, maybe there's no what, league ikisha, no, maybe just normal trophies, about 8 to 10 million. But for a good league, I'd say it would go much higher than that. For decent, if we got 15 to 20 million, we'd have a decent, let me call it decent. Decent in the sense that at least Nyayo is paid for, the refs are paid, the what is happening. But I look at, sometimes I read on social media and see how people have said, KBF wamekula pesa ya get collection, wamekula league fee. I'm thinking, league fee, give or take, gives us only 3 million. If all the teams pay, remember,
at the same
all
time,
the teams pay, is maybe give or take 3 million.
And how much is the league fee?
League fee is 70,000.
Okay.
Yeah. So give or take is 3. Hata ikienda, okay, let's put in, even let's try and throw in transfer fees inside there for all the transfers that have taken place, and there's maybe 2,000, 5,000 coming back to the federation. Give or take, maybe we'd raise 3.5 or 4, 3.5, or maybe, I doubt even it would get to 4 million. And so we are always running on a deficit, that we are always trying to look for ways of supplementing.
And how do you supplement that budget? How do you cater for that deficit? Is it the government? Like where does?
No, not for the league. The government doesn't come in for the league. The government comes in for the national teams. So we try to supplement. You'll find get collection sometimes. Again, that doesn't get to more than 3 million the whole year. But give or take, it might give us, if I take from the beginning to the end of the league, give or take, it might come to 2.5, 3 million, somewhere there. Okay. So we still have a deficit. That's why I'm telling you, we're always running on a deficit, given the fact that we don't get funding, for example, like volleyball or rugby or football, that gets some money from their international bodies. FIBA does not give any federations any monetary, in terms of monetary funds. Okay. So there's no monetary funds that come from the international organization. So we have to find ways. Sometimes you'll find James has come and he's feeling happy. He'll tell us, I see you guys are having a hard time paying your referees. Let me give you another 500 or $1 million, Bob. Or, so we get sometimes every once in a while people coming in to supplement what we have, but it's not been much, at least in the period that I've been that have been in the federation, which is give or take three or so years. It's not been much.
And one of your biggest like revenue models would be TV rights.
Yes.
And that was the last TV rights was Mad Goat. Let us just come back to that. They were offering I think what we know publicly was 100 million for about 5 years. Then they did the 20 for the first year. That means that your budget was already catered for. So how comes we don't have any,
I wasn't in the federation
Oh, at
during the
that-
Mad Goat period.
the 2019 time?
Yes, I wasn't. So I'm not very, I would not give a very accurate answer of that. But give or take, if that's what happened, from what I also understand, that 20 million was also not fully going into just the league. There was the national team, because it had to sponsor one of the national team trips.
Oh,
Each of those national team trips, I think it sponsored one of the trips that was not catered for by the government.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I know we have been looking into that. There have been many proposals. We had cycled in on one last season. Unfortunately, somewhere along the way, things got out of hand, and so the guys didn't come. I came for 1 or 2 days, and then things just went south.
A broadcaster.
Yes.
Okay.
So we are still looking at. We've had a discussion with a couple of them from December, and we are hoping that we can be able to get them to come on board. I know that season has already started, but it doesn't stop us from. Doesn't stop us from them coming in at whatever point where we will be.
Do we have a plan like in place that this is the direction we're taking for the next 5 years? This is what, will you kindly like enlighten us on that?
We do have a plan in place, and we have a very rigorous strategic plan. I think the challenge has really been executing and implementing that strategic plan.
Okay.
Really because of the funding bit. And one of the things, like I said, part of it is to be executed using funding. And if we don't have that funding bit, it's a bit of a challenge. For me, the things that I see low-hanging fruits, which we have tried to start again, it was almost aborting, but we are keeping at it, and we are going to, is the digitization bit, because we definitely have to digitize. I know basketballers don't like the digitization because tumependa pia kukata makona nyingi in terms of registration, in terms of registration, eligibility, and all of that.
Yeah.
Because and I think that should be by the time we're getting into second leg, would be actively, not even second leg, by the end, but sometime next month, we'll be actively using now a web-based system to log in, put in your player details, and all of that. That digitization bit has been long overdue.
Yeah.
We tried to do it in 2021. Teams brought problems, boycotted it, and all of that. We've been trying to do it slowly. Okay, now don't give us signed forms, send it online, which worked a bit. And this year we tried the website. It started this season. A few teams were able to log in. The others were saying, oh, they're not able, and etc. We are just now course correcting some of the issues that were there, and teams will be able to use that before I think by February, mid-February. The second bit is, apart from digitization, obviously for us to be able to build our products and our brands, is also making sure that we revamp our website. We have a we have a domain. It's just that it's very dormant.
Yeah.
So it's seeing how to revive it and make sure that it is running consistently.
Yeah.
If you look at on the administrative side, it's also just to get some some hands on board in terms of administratively, so that some of this administration work is being done by them. The guys on the administration side. Going back to youth development is something that, if you see, last year we had a lot of youth activities. I don't think we have had a robust calendar for the youth like last year.
Yeah.
The under 16 going for a championship in Tanzania, the under 18 going to Uganda for a championship, our under 16s also going for to Senegal for the Dakar Don Jocks pre Youth Olympics games.
Yeah.
So we are trying to really revamp the youth and the youth activities. And so you'll be seeing a lot of stuff involving the youth, simply because if we don't develop at the youth and the youth level, then it means we'll start getting drained at the senior level. So that's what we want to do, and start making sure that we're getting more and more of these players being registered and being eligible to play for Kenya. Because now we are realizing also there's very many Kenyans or players who have Kenyan parents who are abroad, but
they're not eligible.
They're not eligible because of their documentation and stuff like that. And that's what we want to look at. There is a project we want to see. I will not talk about it here right now, so that if it fails, musikuje kuniambia nilisema on camera. Okay. But there's something we will also want to do for the youth. Hopefully maybe sometime this year, or towards the end of the year, where we're going to, at least to make sure that we're able to tap the youth that are based abroad into our system and into our database. We've been creating this database, but it's been slow because it basically depends on, has James called me to tell me he knows someone, or he has a nephew, or has a niece, or his sister, or his brother, or stuff like that. So we've been creating this database, but we need to be able to, at some point, tap and know all the talent that we have abroad that can be able. One of the other things we are also looking at, this is not going into 5 years, but just some short, medium-term things that we are obviously looking at. I've talked about the youth, is rebuild also our 3x3 programs and the way the 3x3 programs are running. In future, would like to see a situation where there are players who, if they cannot find space in 5-on-5, can be able to play 3x3. Because we've also seen learnings from other countries. There's also been quite a few activities off the court that would like to see getting off. Getting more referees, building their capabilities, building their capacities, getting more coaches, and so then there can be a separation between who's a coach, who's a referee, and who's a coach and who's a referee. So building the technical side, all the way from table officials to referees, to statisticians. Statistics is another thing that has to come into when we're talking about digitization. How can we be able to make sure that the statistics for all the games, for each of the games, so that if Dan goes online, we can be able to know that Dan, his average for the league for the whole season is 12 points or 3 rebounds or 1 assist. Yeah. So those are the things that going into the future would really, really be able to create a more robust and effective, effective space.
Thank you for joining us, Madam
Thank
Angela.
you.
I think this is a conversation that we can continue another day. And I thank you, online viewers, for joining us. I thank you for your consideration of watching this video and following Whoopie Sports. And if you have not, please consider doing so. This was EP1 of SportLight. I've been your host, James Kamau. Remember to subscribe on the channel WSN, and have a good one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.